Oh, hey, Virtuafriend. Good to see you again. I feel like it's been ages since we last spoke. So many new shows have come and gone this year, and it's just flown by. I've been trying to better myself and keep out of the political discourse, but it's to no avail. Over on Twitter, I've muted over 1,000 accounts this past month alone, and no end is in sight. By the way, do you follow me over there? You totally should. I need more topics to doom scroll between reps of the gym. Speaking about political discourse, have you watched The Acolyte yet? Honestly, I was not excited one bit. I didn't even know it was out until one weekend night. It was midnight, I had a rough day at the shop, and I really don't want to open up the next day. So I ended up just scrolling through my apps. Some people just take out their anger on anything in front of them. I just don't have the energy to go back and forth these days. You know what I mean? Anyways, I saw the first two episodes and I wasn't impressed. I saw that it came out on Tuesday nights though, so not like I had much going on. So what did I have to lose? Oh gosh. Darth Plagueis is out trying to recruit people from the alley. I'll be right back, Virtual Friend. I was never a Star Wars brat when I was little. My bread and butter were dinosaurs, and even more dinosaurs. My first memory of Star Wars was visiting my Uncle Joe when he was still a bachelor in a small Jersey apartment. He'd always have a new VHS box set, popular sci-fi hits like X-Files, Gremlins, and of course, Star Wars. I was too young to really get the whole gist of it, but I loved the space battles, firefights, and of course the music. I'd leap in his apartment while my parents were out and about in the city. Even though his place wasn't that big, the movie's sound drowned the apartment dark space. In '97, the original trilogy was released. There were of course additions like THX audio, but these golden glories introduced CGI visual effects just in time for episode 1. I was so excited to finally have my own copies. My parents worked a lot, and when we finally got a chance to sit down and watch a movie together, it would only be something simple or something we could all agree on. Star Wars was something my my sister really just couldn't see herself enjoying. Since she was older and bigger, and being a softball pitcher, it was her way or her way. There were two distinct memories I had watching the special editions. One was the THX audio blaring once you inserted the VHS. The next was an introduction to the CGI and new scenes stamped throughout the movies. It felt odd and honestly out of place. I remember I used to get so annoyed that I'd fast forward through some of these scenes, especially Jedi Rocks. Even when I was back watching it as a kid, the first thought that came to mind was betrayal. This wasn't a Star Wars I shared with my uncle. It felt like someone tampered with my memory. The Acolyte begins with the cloaked May entering a cantina to confront Indara, played by Carrie-Anne Moss. The fight invoked memories of the Matrix with wirework and kung fu. And I was hooked. The fight was cut short with a blade to the heart. The series has been, completed for over a week now, so I feel like it's okay to talk about spoilers. Are you cool with that? Honestly, I don't care. We're talking about it anyways. We then switched to Osha, played by the same actress, Amanda Stenberg. She's been working since 10 years old, and even loves to cosplay in her spare time. It was cool, not only seeing someone switch personalities and emotions on the fly, but also someone enjoying their time in the fandom. Like, she's one of us. Osha is then soon tracked down by her old master Soul and his team of Jedi as they try to hunt down May before she kills all the Jedi who were once stationed on Brendok. So begins the quote-unquote mystery of what happened on Brendok and May's intentions behind dismembering the Jedi Order. The premise was new and interesting at first. Over the past 5 years, we've been stuck in the same two eras of the Star Wars timeline. It's either been the end of the Clone Wars and into the events of Episode 4, or the end of Episode 6, but not quite to the latest trilogy. They're still afraid to touch that. I was so ready to experience a new timeline with new characters. The Mandalorian was so much fun, but with the past 2 seasons, it felt like every episode was a canon character popping up. It's almost as if Disney and Lucasfilm were afraid to let it play out as its own piece. Look, I need to be honest before I start ranting. There are elements to the Acolyte that deserve pushback. There are moments that make me scratch my head. But none of that deserves bigotry, hate, or death threats. I mean, it's sad to say, but the Star Wars fandom is almost synonymous with all three. It sucks having to install Chrome extensions just to hide popular creators on YouTube, whose now main goal is to fuel the fires of hate. You may think I'm overblowing this, but one example that comes to mind is Ki-Adi-Mundi. In past Legends lore, he wasn't supposed to be born yet. Since there was no canonical date of birth for him, Wikipedia just left his date of birth as the info bot in Legends. But his appearance in the Acolyte nullified that. Suddenly everyone cared about this one character and spread toxicity to Wikipedia. For what? Something they had no hand in doing? Another example for the Acolyte is the constant hate I see about the want and dismissal of Leslie Headland, the showrunner, writer, and executive producer. Just her, by the way. Not the 9 other writers, 3 other directors, 5 other executive producers, not including Kathleen Kennedy. That's a whole other topic for another day. Leslie isn't someone who's new to Star Wars. She's someone who's been passionate about bringing in some of the Legends lore and often goes into great detail about her projects. I mean, heck, in one interview, she went down detailing everything about Plagueis down to his fingers. This isn't a Halo 2.0 in our hands. She's 44 and has been in the Star Wars fandom for a while. If we really want to talk about the problems with Acolyte, I think it's Disney as a whole. The past few years, we've seen them restructure their content to shoot out 6 to 8 episodes on a weekly basis. Some of this works well, like, Loki and the season 2. But honestly, most of it has been churning out lazy project after lazy project, salvaging what they can with reshoots and delays going on for months and months. Here's some of the recent projects that, in my opinion, fell flat. The Falcon and Winter Soldier, Ms. Marvel, Secret Invasion, Echo, WandaVision, Obi-Wan, and the last 2, I hate to admit it. Ahsoka is one of my favorite Star Wars characters. We see her grow from a Padawan in the Clone Wars to a beast taking on Maul by herself, and then creating the rebellion in Rebels, only for her to fall flat and walk around with barely any emotion in her own shell. Boba Fett, on the other hand, was one of the coolest characters ever. He didn't have to say much. Fans constantly talked about him from his first appearances in the main trilogy, all the way to the Clone Wars TV show. Then when he finally emerges from the Sarlacc pit, we get 5 episodes of him where he's half tribesman and then half a benevolent ruler. And then the other 2 episodes of the Book of Boba Fett were given to the Mandalorian. I felt like I missed something when a ruthless bounty hunter takes a force kick and then suddenly reevaluates his life. I feel like he deserves so much more. I've seen speculation of Disney taking IPs meant for the big screen and cutting them down into a mini-series, and I feel like it makes more sense with every new show that comes out. It sucks waiting a full week for a new 30-minute episode, with 10 minutes of that being just credits. The more I think about it, the more the Acolyte really makes sense. The Acolyte is supposed to be a mystery with tropes of Rashomon told in the Star Wars universe. Rashomon, the character's point of views, alters the events told, making you question who is lying, if anyone, or if your mind is just filling in the events playing out in front of you. And we're just not getting any of that in the Acolyte. We see May kill Indara, then hunt Torben in episode 2. Torben kills himself. Osha and the Jedi try to confront May, and then episode 3 we get a flashback of Osha's point of view, with no justification. 3 episodes of 8, and we already lost focus. What's the real mystery at play? When are we going to discover the true events of Brendok? From Soul's point of view, maybe? I mean, we really don't get any new facts that change our perspective in episode 7, so what was the point of that? Episode 4 leaves the group hunting Kilnaka, with May and the clumsy Chimere in the lead. We're supposed to be wondering who the masked figure is, but the only suspect is Chimere. Where is the mystery? May pulls a fast one on Chimere, but when the Jedi finally catch up, Darth Teeth flies in. Looking back, I really don't even know what the episode... what was the point? Episode 5 is pretty awesome, though. I mean, we got Cortosis, a material mentioned in Legends lore. Shorting out lightsabers with a vambrace and helmet. I mean, that was cool. And all the Jedi are killed, including Jekki and Yord. Only Sol is left alive. We find out Chimere is, oh no, the Sith guy. Oh man, Darth Teeth. He just wants an apprentice, apparently. May and Osha switch places with Chimere, force healing Osha's injury. And Sol takes May back to the ship. Episode 6 is like a cat and mouse game with May trying to hide her identity on the ship. Osha is skeptical of Chimere, but trusts him somewhat to try on the Cortosis helmet. Venestra, who I wish I was forgetting about the entire time to mention. She just appears throughout the story, flies into the planet Kofar, sees all the dead Jedi. I mean, in the Legends lore, Venestra is a huge powerhouse, but in the Acolyte, she just seems to go about protecting the Jedi from the Senate. I mean, to see such a well-known character be reduced to one note, it's really painful. Episode 7 is the flashback we discussed. Episode 8 is where all the forces go back to Brendok. May is taken there by Sol, but when she has a chance, she's reluctant to murder him after everything she's gone through. Osha, on the other hand, has a vision of supposedly May killing Sol and rushes to Brendok with Chimere. Darth Plagueis watches from somewhere on the island as they leave. We finally get another kung fu battle between Sol and Chimere, but then May disarms Sol. When Sol confesses his crimes to Osha, she kills him, changing his lightsaber from blue to red in the process when she's touching his kyber crystal after she's ravaged by her strong emotions. I mean, I really like that scene only because we haven't seen that happen in lore yet, as far as the kyber crystal changing. But then they wipe May's memory and leave her after Venestra senses Chimere, her old Padawan. And then we later see her talking to Yoda once the season comes to an end. I mean, it feels like I gave like a breakneck speed synopsis, but honestly, most of this show was filler. There were parts of the only 8 episodes that seemed like fluff. I mean, the worst part is some episodes feel like they overstayed their welcome, while others feel like they just ended abruptly. It feels like they just filmed it all at once, not like episode by episode, you know what I mean? Maybe if it was filmed like that, we would have got like a different feeling. But I really bet, like with all other Disney properties, this was like a movie and they just cut it into a mini series. You know, just drag it out 8 weeks or 7 weeks since I got episode 1 and 2 at the start. But it's all over the place. Honestly, if I had the time, I'd probably go back and download all the episodes and edit it into like a better format. But as it stands, just watching it episode to episode, week by week, it just felt like a total waste. It's not bad by any means. Honestly, the show is like a 7. I'm not being like graceful with it or anything. It was detailed and creative, but it's just the format and the budget was all over the place. I mean, what if the first 2 episodes were available on day 1 and they went like this? Episode 1 was the events of Brendok play out from Osha's point of view. And then in episode 2 is the fight with May and Indara. And then once she kills Indara, some of the events that happen from May's point of view transfer over to Osha. And through Osha, with the reconciliation with Sol, Jekki, and Yord, her memories transfer over to May. Like, since they're a forced dyad or like a virgins, whatever it's supposed to be. Kelnaka is still killed before May gets to him. Osha is scared and angry from Chimere killing the rest of the Jedi. So we're left in the dark until Sol finally confesses in episode 8. His death is what could fill in the gaps for the twins, and they finally reconcile, leading to the same ending. I really despise that I could think of a better way to go about this in 10 minutes with talking with you, but I can't let that get to me. And I hope it doesn't get to you either. Star Wars has been a staple of my childhood and growth as a person, but I refuse to let that fandom define me. It angers me all the time that I can engage people regarding like the Alien franchise, non-canon and canon lore with no toxicity, but the second a female lead appears in Star Wars, suddenly all I get are memes of girls scissoring and how actors should go die. Episode 1 is my favorite Star Wars movie. I fucking love the pod racing, the visuals, and of course, Jar Jar is my favorite character. The merchandise and toys alone are some of the coolest to ever release. When it came out though, a lot of the old fans were in uproar. I remember the first time I saw episode 1, I was at my grandma's house. My cousins all left and I was sitting alone as it poured down outside. I was playing Pokemon Red on my Game Boy when I noticed they left their copy of episode 1, the VHS by the way. And I wanted to see it in theaters, but I never got the chance. So I popped in the tape and sat there Indian style with the small 19-inch bubble TV blasting the opening crawl. I mean, every part was awesome. I didn't say a word the whole time. I remember I had to pee halfway through. And I mean, even though I was watching this on VHS alone, I refused to pause it because I just didn't want to stop watching. And when I finished it, I was so excited, I looked online to see what people were saying. And it just destroyed me. Ahmed Best didn't deserve the racism, hate, and death threats he received playing Jar Jar. He was only 25. Did you know he almost committed suicide in the Brooklyn Bridge over 20 years ago? All because of the constant bullshit from these Star Wars quote-unquote fans. Did you know he still gets threats today? I mean, what about Moses Ingram, Boyega, Kelly Marie Tran, Daisy Ridley? I mean, heck, what about Hayden Christensen? It wasn't until the Obi-Wan series started to come to fruition that fans actually cheered for him. He was so overwhelmed by the Star Wars fandom actually celebrating him that he was on the verge of breaking down. I find myself at constant odds with the community. I finally had a chance to show my partner episode 4 and they loved it. I was so excited to share a part of my love with them. But what happens when they look on social media and see all the bigotry and hate? What about the other people trying to enjoy Star Wars for the first time? I really wish the community would try and give more chances to shows like The Acolyte, but I know they won't. It's not being pessimistic or a Debbie Downer. It's just me being realistic. The Acolyte isn't bad. The showrunners, actors, and crew really showed that they cared, but to no fault of their own, it was chopped up into an 8-episode miniseries and thrown to the wolves. We'll see the blame thrown here or there, but there's two big elephants in the room. One is the shitty Star Wars fan throwing racist, bigot, remarks, and the second is, of course, Disney, the overlord, just chopping up an IP for monthly paychecks. Sadly, The Acolyte is probably bound to fall on the list of Disney Plus shows we're gonna forget about. Anyways, virtual friend, it's late. Even though I probably won't be able to sleep well tonight, I really hope you do. Have some snacks for the road, and, I'll see you next time. Peace.